would be the one, because I do this when I have people over, rushing around, cleaning the house. I just spit. Rushing around, cleaning the house, getting things ready, stressing out because, the Lord is coming to my house. How relatable is that if you're a mom? The tyranny of the urgent. Everything feels urgent. Hey friends, welcome back to my channel. Today we are continuing our series on the Bible and worry. I think this is my second to last video on this series. I think I have one more planned, one or two more, I can't remember. I know we're gonna be done by Valentine's Day because I'm gonna plan something special for that. But today we're gonna talk a little bit about anxiety caused by busyness. And the passage we're gonna get into is the story of Martha and Mary. Now, many of us have heard this story. Probably if you grew up in the church, you heard this story as a child. It's kind of one of those stories in the Bible that is kind of very memorable. But I think it really is relatable to us as women. The same issues that Martha had back then are things that we as women struggle with today. And we're just going to break that down and talk about how to stop the anxiety that often is caused by our busy, fast-paced lifestyles, and kind of like why sometimes we choose to be busy, and getting into that and what to do differently. So let's get into this passage, Luke 10:38, reading from the ESV version. Now as they went on their way, Jesus entered a village, and a woman named Martha welcomed him into her house. And she had a sister called Mary, who sat at the Lord's feet and listened to his teaching. But Martha was distracted with much serving, and she went up to him and said, "Lord, do you not care that my sister has left me to serve alone? Tell her then to help me." But the Lord answered her, "Martha, Martha, you are anxious and troubled about many things, but one thing is necessary. Mary has chosen the good portion, which will not be taken away from her." I hate to say it. If I was in this story, we all wish that we would be Mary, that we were the one that was sitting at the Lord's feet listening. But so often I am that Martha. In the story, I would have been Martha. I would have been rushing around trying to create this beautiful, wonderful meal for Jesus and those that brought him. I would be the one, because I do this when I have people over, rushing around, cleaning the house. I just spit. Rushing around, cleaning the house, getting things ready, stressing out because the Lord is coming to my house. I stress out when an average human comes to my house. Can you imagine if the Lord was coming to your house and wanting to make things just so for Jesus? And I think that was what Martha was thinking about probably. At that time, she may not have known that he was the Son of God, but okay, let's get on with this. So I want to look at the King James Version a little bit, because there's a word that is used in the King James Version that I thought was really interesting. So just in Luke 10:40, it says, "But Martha was cumbered about much serving." So I looked up the word cumber because I was like, what in the world does that word mean? And it means to weigh down, to burden. And how often are we as women, we're weighed down, we are burdened by everything that we are doing in life. We're feeling overwhelmed. I think overwhelm is a very common feeling for us to have, especially in today's fast-paced lifestyle. And the first thing I want to talk about with you guys is that filling our time with busyness of trying to please others or to make ourselves look good will often create anxiety by having our priorities misaligned. So you might think it's interesting that I've talked about pleasing others and making ourselves look good in this story. Now, we don't know exactly what Martha was thinking. I can't say what her motives were. If she was like, I want to please others, or I want to make myself look good for Jesus and those who are with him, I don't know. But I do know in my own life that a lot of times busyness can be caused by wanting to please others, make everybody happy, be the hero, save the day, and also to make myself look good. When I'm rushing around and cleaning my house and wanting things to be just so if someone's coming over, who am I doing that for? Yes, of course we should, make a good experience for when people come over. But sometimes it's because I just want people to be like, wow, her house looks great. She's so clean. She's such a good homemaker, It's more me focused than about serving other people. How often do we do things? Do we create busyness? Do we put extra pressure on ourselves because we're trying to keep up with the Joneses? We're trying to impress. And it all goes down to motives, because that's not always the motive, when we go to great lengths to do something, but often I think it really is. I'm gonna share with you guys a little excerpt from this book. Don't let the front of it freak you out. Yes, I wish I had gotten one that didn't have this as the cover, but it's called The Practice of the Presence of God. It's a very old book, and they're conversations and letters about, so some of them are letters that Brother Lawrence has written, and some are conversations that this other guy had about Brother Lawrence and how he learned to practice the presence of God. So this little excerpt I'm reading is a conversation that this guy, Nicholas Herman, had about sharing with someone else about what Brother Lawrence had shared with him. So it's a little detailed, a little older English, but track with me here. So he's saying that our sanctification did not depend upon changing our works, but in doing that for God's sake, which we commonly do for our own. That it was lamentable to see how many people mistook the means for the end, the doing instead of the reason why we're doing, addicting themselves to certain works. There's that busyness coming in, which they performed very imperfectly by reason of their human or selfish regards. That the most excellent method he had found, Brother Lawrence, of going to God was that of doing our common business, our everyday tasks, without any view of pleasing men, and as far as we are capable, purely for the love of God. I thought this was really inspiring, thinking about our motives. Like, wow, what if I did things purely for the love of God, not to please people, not to try to make myself feel better about myself, but also how many times in our motives can we use serving others as a way to make ourselves feel more important or more useful? Where we're saying yes to every time someone is asking us to do something, and we're so burnt out, we're so exhausted, but we just feel like we don't want to let people down, so we don't say no. Like I said, I don't know what Martha's motives were for running around being worried about getting this meal just so for Jesus. But I do know that Jesus corrected her and was like, hey, you want Mary basically to be doing what you're doing, but she's chosen the better thing. And I think that's so interesting. You would think almost in our today's day and age that Mary was, if you just read that, it's like, Mary, come on now, you're being a little bit lazy sitting there when you should be helping your sister. But that's not how Jesus saw things. I think he saw it as, Martha, you're doing too much. You're doing too much. Mary is sitting down being with me, and this is what's more important right now. And sometimes we're so consumed with doing too much that we miss out on what matters the most, what we really should be doing. And that leads me into my second point, is doing things out of the motive of what's the will of God and how can I love God will create more peace and simplicity in our life as we focus on what truly matters. We have to know, what is the will of God for me right now, which is specific to us as individuals. We can first say, okay, am I doing this out of the love of God or pleasing others? But sometimes that can be hard to determine. We can be so worried about I want to do the right thing, and that can cause anxiety. I want to do the right thing. I don't want to be selfish. I don't want to be lazy. I want to make sure I'm helping. I'm doing the things that I need to be doing when it comes to my home, my children, my work, my ministry, church involvement, all those things. And that's why we have to go to what is not only how can I love God, but what is God's specific will for my life. And I read this quote and I was like, oh my goodness, I have to share this because it's so encouraging. And his name is Charles Hummel. Don't know who that is, but this quote was amazing. He said, prayerful waiting on God is indispensable to effective service. Like the timeout in a football game, it enables us to catch our breath and fix new strategy. As we wait for directions, the Lord frees us from the tyranny of the urgent. How relatable is that if you're a mom? The tyranny of the urgent. Everything feels urgent. He shows us the truth about himself, ourselves, and our tasks. He impresses on our minds the assignments he wants us to undertake. The need itself is not the call. Did you hear that? The need itself is not the call. The call must come from the God who knows our limitations. It is not God who loads us until we bend or crack with an ulcer, nervous breakdown, heart attack, or stroke. These come from our inner compulsions coupled with the pressure of circumstances. And so I just really want to encourage you guys to start praying if you're feeling busy and you're starting to see that anxiety. A lot of anxiety in your life is caused by how busy you are in your life. And I've been having some time to self-reflect on that in my own life. I've been realizing, whoa, this rushing around, doing all these different things is causing me anxiety. Then we need to take a step back, and it might take a while to reevaluate the things in our life and like, what should I be doing differently, and praying about that. And I love that that verse is talking about that, prayerfully waiting for God. It's not something that we may necessarily figure out like right in the moment that we pray, oh, gotta stop all these things, gotta say no to all these things. Like, no, I think it's like a learned trait to begin to say no and just say yes to what God wants us to do, which starts with praying first before we say yes or before we say no. It's a learned trait that's going to take time. And so I want to ask you guys this question. I would love to hear in the comments. Is there a time you had to simplify or say no to something because you realized it just wasn't what God wanted you to do? Was that challenging for you? I would love to hear any stories in the comments below of your own experience on this topic. Alrighty, you guys, that's all I have to share with y'all today. Thanks for coming along in this series. Don't forget to give it a thumbs up if it was encouraging to you, and I'll see y'all next week. Alrighty, bye.